So a real quick introduction about me for the half of you that I haven't met yet. I've been a journalist for a little over 30 years now. I started out a long time ago with hair in local TV news, went into public radio about 20 years ago and have never looked back. I'm also a broadcast engineer. I'm a writer. I'm a media consultant. I've been a science junkie since I was 8 years old and consumed every book that Isaac Asimov ever wrote, which is a whole story I could tell you another time. I am also a stand-up comic and storyteller, which I think kind of informs a little bit about what I want to tell you today. I actually ripped up this whole presentation last night because everything was so good yesterday at the media panel, I would have just gotten up here and said, yeah, what they said. So it was a fantastic presentation, gave you a lot of basics. I really only have a couple of additional notes on top of that, kind of echoing some of what we heard yesterday and here today. Turnover, especially in commercial TV newsrooms, is worse than ever, which makes it hard for us to get a message out when the people that we're trying to deal with at TV newsrooms are gone just as you start developing a relationship with them. We turn over in my market usually every 2 years. Reporters end their contracts and move over. So it is difficult to find somebody to build the kind of long-term relationship that you want to have to tell this story effectively. My motto on this is seek the geeks, because like David said, you've got the meteorologists, but you also have other people at these stations, if you can find them, who are like us, who dig this stuff, who want to talk to you about it in depth. They may not always be in the newsroom. I went and visited David's station, Texas Public Radio, yesterday and got into a whole long conversation in the administrative offices with a bunch of people who, it turns out, are really big Eclipse geeks. And that's a great point of contact because they can point you to the right other people in the station and say, here's who you need to talk to help get the word out. I am biased about this, but trust public media. We are there in a lot more depth to help get the word out about stuff. A lot of us have talk shows where you can be a guest like Rick and Angela were the other day, and they're always looking for good topics to talk about. I'm going to have some of the Rochester contingent on our talk show the Friday before the partial eclipse, and it's really just a partial for us. The other thing to remember is that a lot of us, especially old timers in the media, are sick of covering bad news. I'm burned out after 30 years of doing this. I want to cover interesting stories that are not bad stories. And so this is a perfect pitch for a lot of those reasons, because it is inherently a good story. You know, we heard the discussion yesterday about, going off the record. Nobody needs to go off the record in talking about this eclipse, hopefully. I hope, except for the part about the space lasers. Don't tell anybody about the space lasers. So it is a good story to pitch. It's an easy story to pitch. Something else that I was thinking about is that really there are sort of two categories of story that you're going to be pitching. And one of them is what I call a utility story. And these are the basics of, hey, schools are going to be closed for this. Here are the traffic impacts that we're expecting. Here's why not to stare directly at the sun. All the basics, right? And we're all pretty good at doing that. A lot of the training yesterday gave you a lot of really good basics for that. But there is also this much deeper story to tell. And I'm very grateful Kate kind of really got into a lot of this in her presentation, is that this is one of those rare stories where you can really sell inspiration to people, where we can really be sort of evangelists about this experience. Let me ask with a show of hands here, who here is experienced by which you've seen totality? Show of hands. Hang on, I'm going to take a picture of you all. You beautiful. You beautiful, beautiful. What was that? How cool. Now I'm super jealous. You got the double. So maybe what, 2/3 of you have seen it. So you know sort of what to tell people. For the third of you who haven't, this is a particular challenge because you haven't had this experience yet either. Oh, by the way, Jimmy really ought to have sun protection there. Eye safety, eye safety. There is skepticism to overcome. There is a tremendous, this was my newsroom chat yesterday. I was on Teams with the newsroom telling them, hey, I'm down in San Antonio. I'm going to be covering this. And we have one kind of cynical guy in the newsroom who literally wrote into the chat and said, yeah, it's going to get dark for a minute. And I wrote back to him and said, let's make an appointment, put it on your calendar for April 9th, and we're going to have lunch, and you're going to tell me just how wrong you were. And so he has it on his calendar, and he's still skeptical about it. You heard the story that Sarah told yesterday from Vincennes about the woman who's just not that into natural phenomena. So we have this skepticism to overcome. And this, I think, this for me is a challenge because I am a storyteller. All the different pieces of what I do are all about taking experiences and conveying them to people somehow in the form of words. And this is a hard experience to convey, as most of you know, except maybe if you're Kate, who does a phenomenal job at it. But I still find this to be a challenge. I did Story Collider, which I think some of you may have heard of, which is storytelling about science. They had me on in Boston back in June talking about my eclipse story. We're short on time, so I'm going to just zip through this really quickly. I went to Kentucky in 2017. These are the pictures that I took. They're okay. People did better ones. These are the pictures that I should have taken more of, and the things that I want to remember, and the stories that I want to convey. And, you know, again, like Kate says, it's all around you, it's under you, it's over you. And, you know, the stories that I want to convey and the stories that I'm trying to sort of get people to think about going forward are the stories of family and who you're with. That's my daughter. That's a much better picture than I took because she was actually looking around her. Smart kid. But the story that I told at Story Collider, and the one that I think is going to be the one that I remember and the one I know we're going to be talking about in April, was actually just before the eclipse itself. We were in Marion, Kentucky. We stopped for lunch just as partial was beginning. People were starting to come out, and you know, I had some glasses and was showing people what was going on. And as we were leaving to head over to the park, one of the locals comes out and says to us, and I quote, "Y'all have yourselves a good eclipse." And every time our family talks about what we're doing in 2024, this was a text with my daughter, we're going to end up with t-shirts, I guarantee it, that are going to say, "We had a good eclipse." And that is the story. I mean, my son and my daughter could be around in 2079 when there's totality near me again. That's the story they're going to be telling my grandchildren and great-grandchildren about when they were kids and they went to Kentucky. So these are the stories that I want you to be thinking about. This is sort of the challenge that I have to, and we're running out of time here. Do all your utility communication. You have to do it. It's important. You're serving the public with it. It's got to get done. People will cover it. But think about inspiration too, and think about the really unique ways that you can make this something that's going to be memorable for your community, and what the story is that you're going to tell that's unique to your community. We had, where are the Uvalde people? Are you guys here? Did they leave? They've stepped out. You know, they've got this particular story that they're trying to tell about getting away from the sad things that happened there and bringing joy to that community. Everybody's got something there. And so think about, you know, beforehand, ways that you can use the experts that you have in your community to win over skeptics. During it, you know, try to find these unique stories and bring them to your media contacts that you've made. And then afterwards, and this is something I'm really looking forward to this next panel, capturing some of these memories and how we're going to preserve that. So think beyond traditional media. Find, you know, we have to kind of be our own media now because a lot of this stuff has gone away. Our newspaper in Rochester is nearly dead. They're printed out of town the day after the eclipse. They will not have eclipse pictures on their front page because their deadline is too early. That's crazy. So find some of the other people who are new media in your community. Be your own media. Think beyond the visual, think beyond the day of and the day after. We're going to talk more. I know I'm looking forward to this panel about permanent storytelling. I'm really looking forward to capturing stories in my community and use the people who just had their hands up to help tell those stories as best we can. Find those people in your community and put them out there. I actually am not, I told my newsroom, I said during, you know, day of, I can do stuff in the morning. I am not working for you live during the eclipse. This is my time because, you know, okay, it's not once in a lifetime per se, but it's once in a lifetime that I can sit right there in my backyard and watch totality. This was April 8th this year. Those clouds are going to get out of the way in Rochester. I promise. We got 200 seconds. How am I going to use them? I'm going to watch my dog watch the eclipse for one thing. But these are some of the things I'm thinking about. Happy to have a lot more conversations with all of you and to help out wherever I can in helping you tell those stories. And if you want to reach out to me, that's where I am. Thank you so much.